من دون الله ما لا يضرهم ولا ينفعه ذلك هو الضلال البعيد يدعو لمن ضره أقرب من نفعه لبئس المولى ولبئس العشير. He talks about all the people who worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It goes on and on and on about the mushrikun, right? And then he talks about fighting against the mushrikun. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا, right? Those who have been oppressed and those who have been fought against and so on and so forth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, a bunch of different times here as well. And that's all talking to the mushrikun. Then finally he finishes the entire surah with Ya ayyuhallazina amanu ruk'u wasjudu wa'budu. That comes right at the end. This is the penultimate verse of the surah. Second to last verse. And the reason why that is because khalas, we know now the situation of the mushrikun. We know now how not to be. Right? We know what path is going to take us to Jahannam. This is the path that's going to take you to Jannah. I have already laid it out for you guys in detail elsewhere, but here is a summary. O you who believe, fall down in bowing and prostration. Here, what it means is salah. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen these 2 points in salah is because they are the points where the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most humble. You're bowing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? Your head is down, your back is straight. You are in a vulnerable position to get whacked from behind. Right? Very vulnerable. And if anybody looks at you in that position, like it's a position of pity and empathy. Like, dude, man, you must have really hard times, man. You must be going through something really difficult. What's even more humiliating, as in humility, as in like the humble version, is when you go down into prostration, right? So these are, and not just that though, right? In spite of it being humiliating, it is the most honorable position that a person can be in. Why? Because that was what he was created for. Absolute servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you don't achieve it in any other position other than your sujood. And that is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, أَقْرَبُ مَا يَكُونُ الْعَبْدُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ وَهُوَ سَاجِدٌ. That the closest point that the servant gets to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when he is in prostration. And that also goes to show that all this stuff about where is Allah, Allah's in a space, Allah's not in a space, da da da. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying the closest that you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that point. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْكُم مِّنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. He is closer to you than your jugular vein. Meaning that there is nothing between, there's no hijab between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? There's nothing between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can get close to Him. Yeah? You can connect with Him. He can connect with you. There's something called ilham, right?
That's right.
Faisal sahib al-ilhamat. Right? He receives things in it from Allah. Right?
So that's why Rasulullah says, if you cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
He sees you. That's ihsan. That's worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with ihsan. Every waking moment of your entire life is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu al-Abbas al-Mursi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the sheikh of Ibn Ata'illah al-Sakandari, and Imam al-Busayri, and a bunch of other ai*imma as well that some people don't like but other people love, right? He would say that إذا حجب عني الله طرفة عين ما عددت نفسي من جملة المسلمين. That he goes, if I was veiled from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even just for a second, I wouldn't consider myself from amongst the Muslims. This is the hal of the awliya and the atqiya. Tamam. So what we're saying is أقرب ما يكون العبد إلى ربه وهو ساجد. The closest you're going to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when you are in sujood, right? And so these are the most honorable parts of your prayer, and that is why it's mentioned here. But what's meant here is your salah. وَاعْبُدُوا رَبَّكُمْ, meaning the rest of your ibadat, from your fasting, from your hajj, from your sadaqah, from all other types of birr and taqwa that you do towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come with regards to the ways in which you get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةِ. We took that in a previous ayah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وابتغوا إليه الوسيلة وجاهدوا في سبيله لعلكم تفلحون. والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا. You are guided to the paths of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to all of the acts of worship that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come with. Then he says وَافْعَلُوا الْخَيْرَ, and do all types of good, which are not necessarily acts of worship in and of themselves, but can become acts of worship. You're good to your parents. That's not like an ibadah in and of itself. You're not worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing that. But in so doing, you're getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Because you're doing it out of humility. You're doing it out of a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. No. وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. You make dua for them as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. بر الوالدين بالطبع. So you're good to them because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be good to them, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has enjoined and commanded you to be good to them. That's why you're good to them. So in following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You removing something harmful from the pathway, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Al-imanu bid'un wa sab'una shu'bah. That iman is many branches, 70 and above, right? And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions numbers like this, right? Bid'un wa sab'un, like it's like 70 something. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is an exact figure. Ala khilafin bayna ulama. Some ulama say no, it's an exact figure. But some ulama say no, this is just an example that the Prophet is giving. That there are many branches, and he will just give as a figure of speech. Like, there's hundreds. You know how we say in English, right? It's like there's hundreds of it. What we mean is like there's like 20. Right? But we want to say that there's a lot. Alright? So in order to like paint that picture of like there's so many, we say hundreds, we use those words, right? Or thousands, or millions, or whatever, right? Even though that figure is not accurate. So the Prophet says there's 70 plus branches of Iman, right? أعلاها قول لا إله إلا الله. The highest is saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and actualizing that. And the lowest is removing something harmful from the street. Yeah? In another hadith, the Prophet said, عرضت علي أعمال أمتي لدى الحجرة البارحة. That I saw the actions of my ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed the Prophet the actions of his ummah. And he saw from the best of it was that they would remove things from the street, right? So like in one sense of the Prophet is saying that the lowest form of Iman is removing something harmful from the street. And in another instance, he's saying that the best of those actions that I saw was removing harm from the street, right? Meaning that what? Just because something is the lowest and something is the highest, that's comparative. Between La ilaha illallah, actualizing Tawheed, and removing something harmful from the street, obviously there's levels to that game. But removing something harmful from the street, when it's harmful in the street, that's big, man. That's big. You know what I'm saying? And also, don't ever belittle any small type of action. And it also goes to show as well that there is a huge link between actualizing Tawheed and removing something harmful from the street. Does that make sense? They're not mutually exclusive. It's not like, I got Tawheed, but I didn't remove something from the street. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm upon the haqq. You know what I'm saying? No, akhi. You have Tawheed that should actualize in you the want to do the smallest of actions. Does that make sense? The most insignificant that you think, nah, minor, man. Right? Brothers want to go give da'wah, like a speaker's corner, they want to, be front and center on YouTube and stuff like that, and like, admonition and arguing and debating and stuff like that and being popular for that. But when it comes to the small things, tarafu', man. It's like, nah, I'm too good for that. You know what I'm saying? وَفْعَلُوا الْخَيْرَ, all types. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, He leaves it general. Al-khair. Right? And lil jins, right? Meaning that all types. Alif lam is for something called a jins, which is the genus of khair. Like everything that is described as being khair, that's what you need to do. وَفْعَلُوا الْخَيْرَ. Tamam? لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, so that you may be successful. And we said لَعَلَّ, it means? No ta'keed. It means that whatever is before is the reason for what is going to come after. Yeah? It's not that you're hoping to be successful, even though there is an element of hope in there, but you're doing the things before so that you can achieve the thing that is after la'alla. Right? So, worship Allah, do your salah, do all types of good, you will be successful. That will be the reason for your success. Does that make sense? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to say in the subsequent ayah, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِ. This is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned previously in Surah Al-Hajj, أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا, that those who have been oppressed, they are now able to fight. So this Surah Al-Hajj was revealed around about the Hijrah. Just some of it is Makki and some of it is Madani, actually. So some of it was revealed before the Hijrah and some of it was revealed after the Hijrah. So obviously in Mecca we were prevented from fighting back, Muslims, right? We weren't allowed. Despite all of the oppression, despite all of the torture, despite all of the suppression, despite all of the physical violence against the Muslims, they weren't allowed to fight back. They were commanded not to fight back. It was haram for them to fight. Mad, isn't it? Crazy, man. Then they made the hijrah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them. And it's an idhn. It's not like, notice how like this is the first instance where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows retaliation. First instance ever. First revelation ever that talks about, Yallah khalas, go. Defend yourselves now, right? And the way Allah says it, it's not like, قاتل المشركين كافة كما يقاتلونكم كافة, like he does in subsequent ayat later on, right? He says, fight all of the mushrikun, right? وَاقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُم, and kill them wherever you find them. You find those harsh verses that come up later, way later. And I'm talking like 6, 7 years, 8 years after the initial verse was revealed about defending yourself. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts it is like this. أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا. أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ. Not even that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given permission for you to fight. The way He says it is, permission has been given to those who have been fought and that they have been oppressed. That's how the injunction comes to fight back. Amazing. There's no like, yo, go out there and kill them now. Go out there and take all of their material wealth. Go out there and conquer their land and take their women. Nothing like that. It's, you guys have been oppressed, defend yourselves. Literally. And there's no active agent here. Have you noticed that, yeah? There's no like, Muslims, you guys need to fight. It's all third person, right? It's all ambiguous. Udhina, somebody, not even adhina Allah. Udhina, permission has been given. By who? Well, we all know it's from Allah, but He doesn't mention Allah's name here. Allah doesn't mention Himself as giving the permission. He says somebody has given permission, or permission has been given. لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ, to those who have been fought. Who are those that have been fought? Has been mentioned by name. بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا, that they have been oppressed. Who is they that have been oppressed? Hasn't been named. Who are the ones that have been doing the oppressing? Hasn't been named. Does that make sense? So there's no like explicit, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to fight like this, you got to fight like that. Nothing like that. That's how jihad like first began in Islam. Does that make sense? It paints a totally different picture to how it's supposed to be, how we're supposed to understand it, or how we're told to understand it.
Is it only given to the Muhajirun?
Huh?
In this case, is it only given to the Muhajirun, the ones who like did hijrah?
No, that's to everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, at this point it's to everybody. Why? Because إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, right? So they're all together now. They're all brothers, one to another. So the command comes, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِ, right? Now one can say that, yalla khalas, like, this is before the Battle of Badr and before like any battle has taken place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding them something that they haven't done. Right? So what's going on here? Jihad doesn't stop. It doesn't stop on the battlefield. When you come back, the battle is over, you come back, jihad hasn't stopped. There's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's some khilaf about it's like sihha and stuff, but it's a Hasan hadith, no problem. And it's narrated a lot, very, very popular, very famous. That when the Prophet ﷺ came back from the Battle of Tabuk, he said, رَجَعْنَا مِنَ الْجِهَادِ الْأَكْبَرِ إِلَى لَا جِهَادِ الْأَصْغَرِ إِلَى جِهَادِ الْأَكْبَرِ. That we've come back from the smaller jihad to the major jihad. Meaning that jihad never stops. You constantly have to rectify yourself. You constantly have to fight yourself. You constantly have to fight your desires that want to be egotistical and antagonistic, that want to be arrogant and feel that you're better than everybody else. That sort of thing you have to overcome. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, هُوَ جَتَبَاكُمْ وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. So fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the right way, in the best way. هُوَ جَتَبَاكُمْ, for He has chosen you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you. Allah. Each and every one of you is chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He chooses from His creation those who He wills. He's chosen some of us to be messengers and prophets from Allah sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the family of Adam and the family of Nuh and the family of Ibrahim and Imran over all of the rest of the creation. So some people have been chosen for those responsibilities. Others have been chosen for other responsibilities. But no matter what happens, anybody that says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and is classified and described with this iman in his heart has been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَجْتَبَاكُمْ, right? وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. And He hasn't made this deen difficult for you. Haraj, it means dhiq, something that is like constricted, something that is difficult, something that is really, really hard, right? And He hasn't made this deen difficult for you in any way, shape or form. And there's always a way out, right? وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَجْعَلْ لَهُ فُرْقَانًا. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Just in case you say, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ, that's too hard, right? وهو اجتباكم. Oh, he's chosen me for this great responsibility. It's too much of a responsibility for me to carry. لا. وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج. ملة أبيكم إبراهيم. This religion of yours is the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Meaning that there's nothing new that I'm revealing to you. There is nothing new that I'm coming to you with. This is something that you find in the old scriptures. تمام? هو سماكم المسلمين من قبل. Allah has named you Muslimin, as He has named you before the Quran, وفي هذا, and in the Quran, right? So you were called Muslimun before the Quran, and you were Muslimun in the Quran after the Quran was revealed. ليكون الرسول شهيدا عليكم وتكونوا شهداء على الناس. So that the Prophet ﷺ can bear witness over you. Allah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, He's going to come and He's going to say, these guys are from my ummah, because they are the ones who called themselves Muslims, they are the ones who said La ilaha illallah, they are the ones who followed my way. Tamam? وَتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلى النَّاسِ, and so that you can be witnesses over everybody else. Tamam? Because you're going to bear witness over everybody else يوم القيامة. فَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِاللَّهِ هُوَ مَوْلَاكُمْ. And so establish the salah, give in zakah, and hold fast to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. هُوَ مَوْلَاكُمْ, because He is your true protector and guardian. فَنِعْمَ الْمَوْلَى وَنِعْمَ النَّصِيرُ. And what a great guardian that is, and what a great protector and cause of victory. Clear ayat here, nothing like major to go into.
Sorry, that one ayat was a sajda ayat, yeah?
Yes, it was a sajda ayah. Ala khilafin. So Imam Malik didn't consider this ayah as a sajda ayah, because in Surah Al-Hajj there are two sajdas, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, the first one is ألم ترى أن الله يسجد له من في السماوات ومن في الأرض والشمس والقمر والنجوم والجبال والشجر. That is محل اتفاق. All of the ulama agree that this is a ayah of sajda. And there is khilaf between the ulama about whether the second ayah of Hajj, which is this one, يا ayyuhallazina amanu اركعوا واسجدوا واعبدوا ربكم وافعلوا الخير لعلكم تفلحون, whether that is an ayah of sajda or not. Imam Malik and those who followed him, they said that it wasn't. Shafi'i and others, they said that it was, and so they would do sujood there. Right, is sujood tilawa, is that wajib? You should do it, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't do it, so it's not wajib, then, isn't it? You just contradict yourself.
So if you don't
Is it wajib? Wallah, it's wajib. So if you don't do it, no, you don't have to do it.
Very wajib, frustration. If you don't do it, shaitan didn't do it. What happened, shaitan?
لا don't say that. Astaghfirullah. Yeah, so it's mustahab, right?
No,
at the beginning, it was something that you had to do every time. Like you were told to prostrate in the Quran, you prostrated.
Yeah.
And then the Prophet ﷺ said later on that in sha'a fa'ala wa in lam yaf'al fala haraj alayh. Like literally he said that. Like whoever does it, bismillah, that's good. And whoever doesn't do it, no problem. The Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim, sometimes they would do it, sometimes they wouldn't do it. Yeah. And some of the fuqaha say that the only reason why the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it, because he used to do it most of the time, the only reason why he didn't do it is he wanted to show everybody that you don't have to do it. That's the only reason why he didn't do it. Yeah? Otherwise he would have done it.
Question, Sheikh, about this sujood.
Yes.
If you read the Quran with no wudu,
Yes.
or for example, from sajda.
Yes. You should have wudu for it, but you don't have to because it's not salah. Your sujood tilawa is not salah.
So
Yeah, there's no takbir, there's no like ihram,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. Yeah. So because it's not considered a salah in and of itself, it doesn't have to have the same conditions as salah. So like other acts of worship, for example, like our fasting, do we need wudu to keep a fast? No, but it's still an act of worship, right? When we give zakat, ibadah, right?
Yeah.
But do we need wudu to give in zakah? No. So just like that, your sujood tilawa, because it's an ibadah, but it's not salah, you don't necessarily have to have wudu. Ala khilaf, some ulama say you have to because it is an action from the salah. Tamam? And because it's an action from the salah, like you gotta have wudu with it.
Sheikh,
Huh?
it's always good to be in the state of wudu, but it's not, like you said, it's not farda upon.
Yes.
Umar ibn Khattab was once reading in one Jummah Surah Hamid Sajda. He made Sajda, and then following Jummah
He didn't make it. Yes. Yeah, it's a famous story. Okay, let's jump on to Surah An-Nur. Allah yanawwar alaykum. Ameen. Verse number 21. Verse number 21, yeah? Surah An-Nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر. He says, "O you who believe, do not follow the footsteps of shaitan." And we took this before in a previous ayah, right? In Surah Al-Baqarah, I believe. What was it? يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. جميل. Well done.
This ayah was for Ahl al-Kitab.
Allah, mashallah, very good, man. Qabili Pilau, very good. Whenever he gets on, whenever he's on it, you know, mashallah, man. إن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين.
ليس هو قابلين.
Too crazy. He just can't help himself. He just can't help himself.
He can't help it. Some man doesn't like him, man. Listen, you need to be quiet. Stop speaking in the dars. Alright, so don't follow the footsteps of shaitan, right? Now, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes things like this, right, He wants to paint a picture for us. Like He wants us to visualize it. It's not just like there's a guy called shaitan, don't follow him. It's like, no, shaitan has footsteps. And these footsteps, they leave imprints in the sand. And those imprints are the same places that you put your feet in the same place that he put his foot in. And you follow those exact steps, and you follow his path until you finally meet him. And he embraces you with open arms, and you become like him. Right? So don't do that. Don't follow those steps. You see that path, you make sure that you turn away from it. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. You know, don't have any character, even if it's the smallest characteristic, even if it's just one characteristic from the characteristics of shaitan. Dishonesty, being mistrustful, being skullduggerous, meaning you stab people in the back, being honest but for a hidden purpose, for a hidden agenda, right? You bring the truth but you wrap it around in falsehood, right? All of those things are from the characteristics of shaitan. Yeah? Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. وَمَنْ يَتَّبِعْ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَإِنَّهُ يَأْمُرُ بِالْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. For the one who follows the footsteps of shaitan, he commands you with fahsha, which is all things that are immoral and indecent, right? Meaning that the things that you do in terms of your character and your actions, that is what is immoral and indecent. And then munkar is associated with i'tiqad, right? Those things that you believe, so you allow things to happen. You think that it's okay for things to happen. That is munkar, right? Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi, right? The only reason why you're going to identify that as a munkar is because you yourself see it as a munkar. If you see it as, it's fine. Yeah, they're not dressed appropriately. It's fine, akhi, no problem. They're doing business in the masjid. It's fine. They're backbiting in the masjid. It's fine. No, mind, man. Just let them talking. They're talking about deen, aren't they? Right? La. Don't pray behind him. It's deen, no? It's deen, wallah. We're getting closer to Allah by doing this, huh? It's deen, right? Wallah, man. They think they get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the backbiting, man, isn't it? Right? So that's munkar. Right? Munkar is associated with i'tiqad. So fahsha and munkar. This is what shaitan commands you with. And shaitan commands you with all of, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells us what the shaitan commands us with, right? الشيطان يعيدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. Right? Shaitan, he makes you afraid of being poor. And so he commands you to do things that are immoral. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made riba haram. It's immoral to do it. Man, it's the only way I'm going to get rich. If I start investing in these like Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that and start dabbling in all these investments and currency trading. There's riba involved, but minor, man. Look at the percentage gains, man. The ROIs on that is unreal, man. Let me just get involved, man, because that's the only way. Wallah, man. I work as a pharmacist. I'm working in a pharmacy. Slaving away there, and I'm not barely getting paid anything. Even the pharmacists, they're doing all right, though, right? McDonald's boycott. Give me something. Give me a halal job, guys. Uber, right? Allah akramakum Allah, mashallah. There's a lot of Uber drivers here, right? Alhamdulillah, they do an amazing job and they work really, really hard. But at the end of the day, like, it's not amazing, man, in terms of like the return on your investment, man. You know what I'm saying? You're just getting by, man. Does that make sense? So it's like you toil away. A person in that position is like, yo, man, let me just take this road. It's gonna make me rich quick, and khalas, yallah, I'm chilled. You know what I mean? Yes, that's what shaitan, he commands you with, man. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ مَا زَكَى مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ. And if it wasn't for the the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you and His mercy. ما زكى منكم من أحد. على فكرة, this sentence, yeah, ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته, this is the secret of Surah Al-Hajj. Surah An-Nur, sorry. Surah An-Nur, it's mentioned in this surah 4 times, this sentence. Every single time that it's mentioned in, there is some meaning around it that is profound, that is very, very deep. I'll let you guys go through it yourselves, inshallah. But have a look. Go through the surah and have a look at that sentence, and every time it comes around, see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying around it. Here, Allah is talking about not following shaitan, the footsteps of shaitan, right? And if it wasn't for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His favor upon you, مَا زَكَى مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ, none of you guys would be purified. None of you guys would be praiseworthy. None of you guys would reach any level that's worth any salt. مَا زَكَى مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا, never. So it's only from the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're saved from the path of shaitan. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praises and He purifies whoever He wills. Right? وَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. Do not praise your own selves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows best who has truly got this taqwa in him and who is just giving it lip service. Right? So be careful who you praise, right? The ulama, they always say, whenever they're like في معرض بيان المدح, whenever they're about to praise someone, they will say, وَلَا نُزَكِّي عَلَى اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Like, we don't praise anybody over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't actually know truly whether this guy deserves the praise or not. Only Allah knows. But this is what we know of him, and it's good things. Does that make sense? وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ. Which also shows that, guys, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Allah will prove it to everybody. Does that make sense? And even if He chooses not to prove it to anybody, no problem. Allah knows. Does that make sense? Your job isn't to convince people that you're a good person. Your job isn't to convince people that you're a good Muslim and that you're upright. Your job is to be a good Muslim and be upright. People recognize it, they don't recognize it, it doesn't matter. Bro, what age are we living in today? Right? Where like ma'roof is munkar and munkar is ma'roof. Does that make sense? Right? So what paradigm, what parameters are you expecting people to recognize the goodness in you from the bad, right? لَيَأْتِيَ عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٍ. The Prophet ﷺ used to say that there's going to be a time where that's going to come upon people. يُصَدِّقُ فِيهَا الْكَاذِبُ يُكَذِّبُ فِيهَا الصَّادِقُ. That the one who is honest is going to be called a liar, and the one who is a liar is going to be like, yo, this guy talks facts. Right? And anybody that goes on YouTube comments, like he just knows, man, that's mad, right? Allah understand. Yeah? So don't prove yourself to anybody. And don't feel that you need to prove yourself to anybody. Right? And to the people that matter, you will be proven. Right? It doesn't matter about the masses. Wallahu Sami'un Alim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. Allah hears everything. Allah knows everything. Don't worry about what other people say. Tamam? So that's that. The next is in the same surah, Surah An-Nur, in 27. So a couple of ayahs ahead. Same page, bottom of the page. يا ayyuhallazina amanu لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها ذلكم خير لكم لعلكم تذكرون. Now Surah An-Nur is all about how we deal with one another. Our character, our familial relations, our social relations. And it talks a lot about how we visit one another, visitations, how we go to other people's houses, what we say, what we don't say, and so on and so forth. Very interesting how this is like a really important part of the Quran. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's got 6,236 verses that He's revealed, right? In these 6,236 verses, right, limited amount of real estate with regards to what you can say and what you can't say. When you talk about things, and you talk about topics, those topics got to be really, really important. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about when you visit someone, make sure you say salam, make sure you seek permission before you enter, and so on and so forth. Aren't these like basic things, right? Yeah, basic etiquettes, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided to single out ayat for this, right? Which means that they're not so basic, right? They're not so basic. There is more to it than just, can I come in? Right? That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking for here. And let's have a look. He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم. O you who believe, do not enter into homes that are not your homes. حتى تستأنسوا, until you seek permission. وتسلموا على أهلها, and you give salam to the people who live there. ذلكم خير لكم لعلكم تذكرون. This is better for you if only you remember. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just like, He's not just defining the parameters of what you do when you go and visit someone and visit someone's house. He's defining property rights. He's defining what belongs to who. And if we establish what belongs to who, what rights follow thereafter. Tamam? This is very, very important. Very, very important in a world that those lines can be skewed with regards to what's yours and what's not yours. Sometimes in our cultures, even within families, those lines are blurred. Right? So the father thinks that just because this is his son's home, he can walk in whenever he wants, however he wants, because whatever is my son's is mine, right? As the Prophet ﷺ said, right? Anta wa maluka li abik. You and whatever you own belongs to your father, right? So they use this hadith and they're like, yeah, I could do whatever I want to my son. I could tell him to divorce his wife. I can walk in his house. I can take his property, and he can't say anything because anta wa maluka li abik, right? So, and that's then heavily instilled in our cultures, right? To the point where these ayat now are now ignored. They will walk into the house, and even if their son or their daughter says, hold on, wait, don't come now, come later, or something like that, it's like an ar. It's like a massive, like, what have you done? You've disrespected me, you disrespected the entire family, you disrespected your grandparents and their grandparents, right? And it goes back all the way to Adam alayhi salam, wallah, you're going to Jannah, right? Like crazy reactions, man, right? It's like, hello, there's rights here, right? There's rights here. So these things can get blurred, even in like the most like basic of scenarios. Tamam? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets out property rights. These homes are not your homes. And because they're not your homes, the people have rights and you don't. And you have to give them their rights, and they deserve those rights. Whether you're higher in society than they are, whether you are more like respected, whether you have more money, whether you have more power, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. What matters is rights. And you make sure that you give the people who deserve those rights their rights. Yeah?
These people, the people came from Banu Jurham, Yemen, to Makkah for the first time, and they asked Hajar that can we have this water? They asked the permission first. She said yes, it will be mine. You can use it.
Allah, yes.
To this day, like
yes, fitra, they are the fitra right there.
What you mentioned about the parents walking into children's home and that. These people.
He's done it before, and that's why he's asking.
If they are, they are Muslim, they are knowledgeable, they know what's right and what's wrong.
Yes.
But then there's the cultural thing.
Yeah.
Which is so for some reason is very predominant among some people.
Yes.
Because culture overtakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that? Because
yes.
I come from
yeah. Okay.
Where these cultures have been broken down.
Yeah.
So I don't associate with this because I've always thought you ask for anything.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Even when I used to go to my parents' home at home.
Yes.
I always say to my children, don't take. It's not yours.
Yes.
I was afraid to even put my feet, on a table if I wanted to.
Allahu Akbar, man.
I had to ask.
That's the old etiquette, man. MashaAllah.
Because I always thought this is their home. You have to respect.
Beautiful, man. Yeah.
So,
MashaAllah.
I thought,
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Very good. Okay, but when culture and deen overlap, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? As long as people are happy, no problem. But when there's dispute, then the Sharia comes in. That's the faisal. Does that make sense? So it's the same in like marital relationships, right? When two people get married, right? The Sharia says that the man has to what's it called? الرجال قوامون على النساء, right? They are the ones who are supposed to look after بما فضل الله من أموالهم, right? They are the ones who are supposed to spend on their wives and on their children, right? أن تكسوها كما كسوت وأن تطعمها كما طعمت, right? وأن تسكنها كما سكنت, that you are supposed to feed her as you are fed, as you eat, and you are supposed to clothe her as you are clothed, and you live with her as you live, right? That's the words of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That's what you're supposed to do. So that's the responsibility of a man. But let's say two people get together, she wants to work and he's working, and say, Yallah, khalas, we'll both put our money together and we'll both spend on things. I'll cover these bills and you cover those bills, and so on and so forth. Is that now haram in the Sharia? No, of course not. Are they both happy to do that? Yes, Bismillah, absolutely. They can go about their entire lives doing that. They can even teach and instill in their children, this is what you should do, guys, this is the best way. In order to be happy, you have to compromise with your husband and wife and so on and so forth and come to some sort of agreement, blah, 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 blah. All good. When they start beefing though, when they start fighting, when they don't agree with each other anymore and it's leading to divorce, that's when the rules of the Sharia kick in. La, you as a man have to provide this, she doesn't have to provide it, etc. etc. Does that make sense? Right? So similar here. If there are a'raf where khalas, like me, I'm happy for my dad to come in whenever he wants, man. And my wife, she's happy with that too. She doesn't mind either. Obviously from the maharim, right? Not like some random like my cousin or something like that. Or you way out there. Right? But I'm happy for my dad to come in whenever he wants to. I'm happy for my mom to come in whenever she wants to. My wife is also happy with doing that as well. No problem whatsoever. Tamam? All good. In that, you don't have to turn around and say, you should be acting according to the ayah here. You're going against the ayah. No. You can do whatever you want with regards to the a'raf as long as everybody's happy and there's nothing haram in it. Tamam? But as soon as there is a dispute, like now, for example, I have a second wife. And she doesn't like my parents coming in and visiting all the time. Tamam? Allah, I'm very shocked as well. I don't know why I got married a second time.
Yeah, anyway,
I should have stuck with the first one. She was much better.
My door is locked anyway. You need to hold the door.
No, my parents got a key, man. Right? And you got a key to your parents. I've got a key to my parents' house as well, right? And I can go in there whenever I want, and they won't bat an eyelid. But if they turn around to me and say, hey, no, you have to like ring the bell now, right? In the dispute, whenever the dispute comes into play, that's when the Sharia comes in with all the ahkam. If there is a dispute now, my second wife, she's like, no, Hamid, I don't want your mum and dad to come in every single day and visit us. And if they do, I just don't want them walking in and barging in on us. I want them to knock the door, I want them to ring the bell, and I want to know when they're coming. Ya Allah, khalas, haqquki. Lakin ilhaqi bi ahliki. I'll be like, yeah, that's your right, but yeah, go to your mum now. Me and you are done. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. This is all a joke, guys. This is all facetious examples, all right?
What do you think the woman, working together, but this, I'm to work, but this is my money.
Say again?
He wants to say the same agenda.
Yes.
Yeah? But the woman say, I'm working, this is my money.
Yeah, so you say that to her as well, no?
That's not money.
That's my money, because you work.
Yeah, so you say that to her?
You need to pay.
Yeah, you say that to her, man. You
Yeah,
say,
but-
I'm working, this is my money. I'm giving it to you because I have to,
No.
right? But it's not your money. I'm giving it to you because I have to. But it's my money.
No, but she is not allowed
Ah.
to go to work if I don't want it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you want to work, we do together.
Yes.
If not, you stay home.
Yes.
What I have money?
As long as you guys agree on that.
Yes. That's
Whenever there's a dispute, that's when the
you
Sharia
can
kicks in the
stop her
ahkam.
from the work,
Yes.
All right, calm down, you misogynists. What's wrong with you, lot, man? All right. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها. Let's get back to the ayah. Yeah? So don't enter into homes that aren't yours until you seek permission. And the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says seek permission is تستأنسوا. It doesn't say تستأذنوا. Idhan is to seek permission. Uns is to have like social cohesion and be friends, be sociable, have like a good conversation with each other.
Anas.
Anis, Habibi, man, mashallah. Right? So, huh? Anna's Grove? Is that like a private joke, yeah? La ilaha illallah. Is it exposure, yeah? We keep these things secret, akhi. We do, man. All right. So tastanisu, meaning that you become social, right? Which puts the undertone of seeking permission. When we seek permission, it's done out of like love and affection and wanting to get closer to each other, right? It's not done out of like, it's my right, let me in. What are you saying? Open the door, right? There's no forceful element of it. It's done in like a really, really nice way, right? So that's tastanisu. وَتُسَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَهْلِهَا, and then you give salam, right? Now, asking permission to enter, that's wajib. You have to. You're not allowed to enter without permission, right? Salam though, is that wajib?
Sunnah.
Sunnah, yeah. Some people say when it comes to seeking permission, to say salam is also wajib. You have to do it, right? Because there's مطلق الجمع بين الاستئناس والتسليم, right? So there's a joining together of these two things, of these two phenomena, asking permission and giving salam. And because they're both together and they're both commands, one of them is wajib, then the other one has to be wajib as well. That's what they say. But the haqq here in this mas'ala is that seeking permission is wajib and giving salam is is mustahab. Tusallimu is to say assalamu alaikum, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't say تستأنسوا وتقولوا السلام or وتقولوا السلام عليكم. He said tusallimu. This is called naht in Arabic. Naht. Naht is when you get a big word or a bunch of words and you make a small word out of it. So assalamu alaikum at-taslim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim basmala. Yeah? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah hawlaqa. Yeah? Huh? Yes. Yeah, كنز من كنوز الله. حوقلة أو حولقة. كلاهما. ورد كلاهما.
You can just say حولقة instead of لا إله.
No. لا. حولقة. Some Sufi. No. These are just words to describe these sentences. Naht. Naht means to carve. So it's almost like you've got a big boulder, a bunch of words, and you've carved out of that a smaller word.
Sometimes these words is better not to know because people then use as well. It's compressed, so I can use that.
Yeah.
And because people.
I don't think anybody does that, to be fair.
Funny
No one in this room is going to be like hawlaqa. Yallah khawla. Basmala. I mean, instead of saying Bismillah, I'm just going Basmala. Basmala. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. We did. Okay. ذلكم خير لكم لعلكم تذكرون. That is better for you. So doing all of that, seeking permission and so on and so forth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to explain these ahkam. فإن لم تجدوا فيها أحدا فلا تدخلوها حتى يؤذن لكم. Even if you don't find anybody inside, then don't enter. And this goes on to property rights outside of the home as well. If something doesn't belong to you, لا تتصرف فيه إلا بإذن مالكه. You're not allowed to use whoever's property that is. You're not allowed to use it unless you get his permission. Somebody's phone is lying there. Yeah, let's make some calls, man. He'll be fine with it, bro. It's all good. Seek his permission first. Unless there is some mutual understanding between you two. Like it's a good friend of yours, right? Like we were in suhoor this morning, and one of the brothers' phone rang, and then the other brother picked it up, and he started chatting to him, and the other guy came in whose phone it was, and he's like, "Oh, who is it?" And then he told him who it was. He was like, "Oh yeah, khalas, yallah, all good." Do you know what I mean? Because there's a mutual understanding between them. That's fine, no problem. But if there's not a mutual understanding, someone leaves their bag here, you decide to like open it up, have a look what's inside, have a look at the yeah. not in Ramadan, right? So what we did, right? All of that impermissible, haram. Yeah, not even like with any excuse or anything like that. Not allowed to do anything with anybody else's property. وَإِن قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا. And if it's told for you to go away, right? Don't be like, oh, that's rude, isn't it? I remember in Egypt, man, right? Between talaba, those lines are blurred hardcore, right? Because we're all students, right? So everybody just walks in and they walk out and stuff like that, right? But I was like, look, you're not going to busy my time. I come to Egypt for only a set number of years, and I'm going to come back to my community. If I stay here and I chat to you guys, I'm going to come back a jahil. And everybody's going to be like, why did you come back a jahil? You went to Al-Azhar al-Sharif. Right? You should be coming back an alim. If I come back an alim, no one's going to bat an eyelid. Everyone's going to be like, yep, we expected that from you. If I come back a jahil, everyone's going to be like, what the hell were you doing out there in Egypt, mate? Right? So I'm not going to allow you to take my time and busy me, right? So I would lock my door. And they would knock. And I wouldn't answer. And we just have like a room that's like 3 by 5 meters. Like really small. That's all we had. We spend like most of our time there, go to our lessons and stuff like that. But they knock. And they know you're inside. Because your slippers are outside, right? And your shoes are outside. They know you're inside. They knock. I don't answer. Knock again. I don't answer. Knock again. I don't answer. Knock back, bro. I'm like, bro, go away. You know what I mean? Then I'll see them later. They'll be so upset. They're like, bro, why didn't you open? It's like, bro, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا, man. What's wrong with you? Like, where's your akhlaq with this, man? And they're all like kuffar and stuff, right? They all in these ayat. But it's just like the culture in it, the culture of the time.
Some of the Sahaba would love to be return home. They would have twice knocked the door and they would not reply.
This happened to Umar. Yeah. This happened to Umar actually. There's a story, right? Hey, let me tell you the story, right? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. The lineage of the Ash'ari goes back to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Yeah? Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari goes back to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Yeah. So anyway, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari goes to Umar radiallahu anhu, knocks on his door, calls him out 3 times. Ya Umar, Ya Umar, Ya Umar, Ya Umar. Doesn't respond. So he leaves and he goes back. He comes back to the masjid and he sits down with the Ansar, right? And Umar radiallahu anhu, he was busy, right? And he says later on in the hadith that he was busy like sorting out his like trading stuff, right? So he was busy making a peace, Abdurrahim. So and while he was engaged in that, he heard Abu Musa, but he didn't have like the energy or the time or the whatever it was, the mental capacity to give him that attention just at that point until he finished what he was doing. When he finished, he turned around to his the people that was in his house, his servants and stuff. Was like, "Oh, where's Abu Musa gone? I heard him call me." He's like, "Yeah, he called 3 times and he left." And he's like, "What?" So he went after him and he called him back. Abu Musa came back and he said, "Hey, why didn't you wait? What's wrong with you, man? I'm right here. You should have called for me, or you should have waited on me." And he goes, "La, I heard from the Prophet ﷺ that al-istidhan or thalathun, that I heard from the Prophet ﷺ that when you ask permission to enter into a home, you ask 3 times, and if it's not responded to you, then leave." Right? Yeah, and don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all, right? هو أزكى لكم وإذا قيل لكم ارجعوا فارجعوا هو أزكى لكم. That is more pure for you. You're going to be much closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing that. So khalas, he left, right? So Umar radiallahu anhu says, "What? I didn't hear the Prophet say that." So he said, "You're going to come to me with a shahid." Alright? لَتَأْتِيَنَّنِي بِي بِمَنْ يَشْهَدُ بِقَوْلِكَ. Right? You're going to come to me with someone who can bear witness what you're saying is true. Allah. Umar radiallahu anhu is doubting Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, this gracious and wondrous companion who was so close to the Prophet ﷺ, who has numerous ahadith that he has narrated to that have come to us. Umar radiallahu anhu, he's doubting him. He's doubting his sincerity. He's doubting his trustworthiness, his truthfulness. What's going on here? So Abu Musa, obviously this is Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? And Umar is like hardcore. So Abu Musa, he gets upset. And he goes back to the Ansar, right? So he goes back to the masjid and he's all sad and stuff. And the Ansar look at him like, "What's going on? What's wrong with you, Abu Musa, man? What are you sad for?" And Musa's like, "Wallah, man, Amir al-Mu'mineen." he's telling me, "I got to come with a witness for when the Prophet ﷺ said, like, when you ask permission, ask 3 times, and if it's not responded, then leave. But I don't know anybody else that knows this. Like, as far as I'm aware, like, he said it to me, and I don't know." And then they all looked at him and they all laughed, and they were like, "La nab'ath ma'aka illa asgharuna." Like, we're not going to send anybody except the youngest from amongst us, because everybody knows this from the Prophet ﷺ. All of us, we know, man. Like, who amongst us doesn't know this? So they sent a little kid with him, right? So Musa taking this little boy back to Umar, and Umar sees him, he's like, "Who's this?" And then the boy's like, "Yeah, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, like, whoever," and he mentioned the hadith, right? And Umar's like, "Kayfa khafi alayya hada." Now, it could be said, right, that if Umar has the audacity to question a companion like that, then we need to question every companion then. Does that make sense? Anybody that's narrated hadith, we also need to find out whether he actually heard it. So we need a second narrator. We can't accept just one chain of narration. Does that make sense? This is not why Umar was doing it. He wasn't doing it because he didn't trust Abu Musa because he was the only one who told him. It's because this is something that was mentioned in the Quran. And it's so obvious. It's such like a basic etiquette of how to deal with one another and how to do things, that something like that shouldn't have skipped Umar. Umar shouldn't have missed something like that. He should have known it. And so what he was so amazed by was that Abu Musa is telling him something that is so bait and obvious, he doesn't know it. And he's like, "How do I not know this? Find me someone else that knows this. How can this be that I missed this," right? And this would happen to Aisha radiallahu anha all the time. Not all the time, but many instances. The Sahaba would come up to her and they would tell her about something that the Prophet said, and she would immediately say, "La, man qala anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ra'a Allah faqad kadhaba." Right? Whoever said that the Prophet ﷺ has seen Allah, then he has lied. Even though the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "I saw Nur," right? When he went up to Isra and Miraj, right? Anybody that says that the Prophet ﷺ prayed, she would say that the Prophet ﷺ never ever prayed tahajjud, qiyamul layl. He never prayed qiyamul layl more than 8 rak'at. And another narration, 11 rak'at, meaning that 8 and witr. But we know for 100% certain that he prayed 13. That's more than 8. That's more than 8, Aisha, right? Radiallahu anha. Does that make sense? So this is an instance where some things they miss the companions, and then their response to it is very severe, right?
Similar in the Quran, إِنَّكَ مَيْتٌ وَإِنَّهُ مَيْتٌ, because Umar said on the death of Rasulullah ﷺ, the demise of
Alayhi
Rasulullah
salatu wasalam.
if anybody said he is dead, I will
Yeah,
chop his head.
yeah.
Abu Bakr bring him and he said the verse.
Yes.
And he said like, is this verse is revealed now upon me?
Yes. Yeah, وكأني أسمعها الساعة. It's almost as if I'm hearing it for the first time. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, that could be like understood as the Prophet, the Umar radiallahu anhu was so shocked because nobody expected him to pass away. Even when he was when he was ill, right? There's a hadith in Bukhari where he wants to write down like his will. Right? He's like, let me write something down for you guys that you guys will follow after me, right? وَلَن تَخْتَلِفُوا بَعْدِي. Like you will not like differ after me, right? And so some of the companions were like, la, not now, let's do it later, stuff like that. Not because like they didn't want the Prophet ﷺ to write, it's because the Prophet ﷺ was ill and they wanted him to get better, and when he gets better, then they'll write it, right? Because nobody thought that he was going to pass away, and then he passed away. So it was such a shock to Umar radiallahu anhu that he was like, no, he can't be dead, he can't be. That was the situation there. Do you know what I mean? Not that like he believed that the Prophet was going to live forever or something like that, or that he had never heard this verse before, or he didn't believe that the Prophet was able to die. Nothing like that. He just didn't expect it, and it was just such a shock. And they had such an attachment to him. Anyway, Wallahu bima ta'amalun alim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever aware of what you do. Then he goes on to mention a bunch of other things about seeking permission, inshallah, all quite obvious. But the main thing is that we have established that there are property rights, there are huquq and wajibat with regards to these things, that is more than just seeking permission just to enter into a home and saying salam. Right. Next one is in verse number 58 of the same surah, Surah An-Nur. 58, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, la yasta'dhinkum alladhina malakat aymanukum walladhina lam yablughu al-huluma minkum thalatha marrat. Again, seeking permission for entering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, let them seek permission. And this time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sarih bil idhn. He is clear with regards to seeking permission. Like you've got to ask for permission. Not even like uns now, right? Now the reason why idhn, istidhan is used here and not isti'nas, like it was used in the previous ayah, with regards to like sociability, is because this is with regards to children and youngsters coming in to their parents' quarters, where their parents reside, right? يا أيها الذين آمنوا ليستأذنكم الذين ملكت أيمانكم والذين لم يبلغوا الحلم منكم ثلاث مرات. That those from your servants and those from your children and youngsters, they should seek permission from entering into your quarters 3 times in the day. من قبل صلاة الفجر, before the Fajr prayer. وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة, and when you lay down when the sun is in the highest point in the sky, aka after Dhuhr, or just before Dhuhr. ومن بعد صلاة العشاء, and after Isha. ثلاث عورات لكم, these are 3 times in which nobody should see you. These are 3 times in which you shouldn't be visible to anybody. Awra is that part of the body that no one's allowed to see, right? That should be covered. Yeah. Awra also comes to the word ar. Ar meaning something that is like despicable, man. Like nobody should see. You shouldn't show anybody, nor should anybody see. It's like a shame, something that's shameful. Yeah, that you want to cover from other people's gaze and so on and so forth. That's ar, right? So that's where awra comes from. Okay. ثلاث عورات لكم. These are 3 times of shame. No, these are 3 times in which nobody should see you. Nobody should see you in that capacity, right? And these are all times in which, one, you are resting, or you are focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? قبل صلاة الفجر, that's the time of tahajjud, right? But it's also the time that you wake up. That's also the time that and that's also when other people wake up as well in order to get ready for Fajr and pray Fajr and so on and so forth. That's when the day starts. So people are going to be mixing at that time. Dhahira is when everybody relaxes as well. And these are all times in which you're going to be alone together. Spouses, more often than not. Yeah, does that make sense? And when spouses are together, Bismillah, if it's a loving and beautiful relationship, beautiful things happen. And if it's not such a beautiful relationship, then nothing happens. But you still can't enter. اللهم ارزقنا محبة أزواجنا. آمين آمين.
Number 3 and 4 inshallah.
يا رب آمين. يا عمي, just stick with your one. Okay. ليس عليكم ولا عليهم جناح بعدهن. And there's no problem in them coming in any other time. They can come in whenever they want after that, no problem. طوافون عليكم بعضكم على بعض. They are people who do tawaf around you. But not tawaf in terms of the ibadah, yeah? Before someone says, shirk. They're worshipping other than Allah. Tawafun meaning those things that mix amongst you, and you can't stop them from mixing amongst you. Like the Prophet said about the cats, right? When it was asked about whether they're najis or not, and the Prophet said, Tawafuna alaykum at-tawafat. That they are animals that just, they mix amongst you anyway, no problem, they're not najis, right? So similarly, your children and your servants and all those around you in your families.
That is not najis at all.
Not at all, no, not at all. كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات والله عليم حكيم. That is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows or makes clear His verses. والله عليم حكيم. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all knower and all wise. And then He goes on to say وإذا بلغ الأطفال منكم الحلم فليستأذنوا كما استأذن الذين من قبلهم. Then like if they grow older, then they should still seek their permission from entering and so on and so forth. والقواعد من النساء التي لا يرجون نكاحا فليس عليهن جناح أن يضعن ثيابهن غير متبرجات بزينة. Hey. And then the old women who have reached an age that have gone on a bit, there is no problem in them. فليس عليهن جناح أن يضعن ثيابهن, to remove their clothing. غير متبرجات بزينة, except that they don't show like their overt beauty, right? They don't overtly show their beauty. Now this doesn't mean that they walk around naked, right? That take off their clothes. It means that the hijab for the believers was to cover themselves, right? And that was also to cover their clothes that had zina on them, right? When they reach an age in which they're not going to get married again, they're not going to have any kids, and they're pretty wrinkly and old, and their teeth have fallen out and stuff, and they're not ones to get married again, right? They're not going to be like mahall hijab, right? They're not going to like, men are not going to like see them and be like, Allahu Akbar, my heart skipped a beat. I feel attracted to this woman. Like, it's not going to happen, man. Unless the guy is sick in the head. Sick in the head. Is this PC? Are we allowed to say this stuff? Let me say it anyway, man. Like, your butt is love, right? Ain't no one coming after you, right? When she reaches that age, right? She's allowed now, the cloak that used to cover up her clothes, her normal clothes, that she wasn't allowed to be seen in, she can now take that off, no problem. And she could be seen in like, her normal like salwar kameez or something like that, no problem, right? But before she had to cover that up. Tamam? Which also shows that the mahall zina is, so there's a khilaf between the fuqaha. What is وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا? Like, what is showing beauty? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. Say to the believing women that they should lower their gaze and they should protect their private parts, right? And that they should cover themselves, right? And they shouldn't show their beauty except that which shows from it ordinarily. There's khilaf amongst the fuqaha. Yeah, what is the thing that it shows ordinarily? The vast majority of the fuqaha are face and hands. Because Aisha radiallahu anha, she says in Bukhari that it's the face and the hands. Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Abbas, a bunch of other companions, they all say face and hands. Some of the companions, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, would say that it's not the face and hands, because the face and hands needs to be covered. It is the clothes, right? So what shows from the beauty of the clothes that a woman wears, that's what shows ordinarily, and that's what she can show. But the face and hands aren't included in that, right? So now we have two madhabs. The first madhab is face and hands are allowed to be shown, but the clothing is not allowed to be shown. So you have to wear a cloak. The second is the clothing is allowed to be shown, but the face and hands aren't. So whatever cloak you do wear, even if it is beautiful and it has zina on it, no problem. But you have to cover your face and your hands. Tamam?
What does zina mean?
Zina means beauty. Yeah. And beauty here doesn't mean your normal complexion. Yeah? It doesn't just mean your face, like what it looks like, right? Because zina is something that you have beautified. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah, something that you are showing, you are putting on to show. Does that make sense? Yeah? So it's not just how you look. Does that make sense? Tamam. Where's it going to go with this?
The thing
I don't know where I was going with this. I was going somewhere with this. Hey, what makes the which one of those madhabs is the correct one? What makes the madhab of Abdullah ibn Abbas and the other companions, what makes that strong is this very ayah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِنَ جُنَاحٌ أَن يَضَعْنَ ثِيَابَهُنَّ, so there's no problem in them removing their clothing. If the zina was the clothing itself, then if they would remove it, then what do they have left? They don't have anything left. But if the zina was their face and hands and they were supposed to cover their clothing, then whatever was the cover for their clothing, that can now be removed when they're older. No problem in people seeing them in that state. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the best way for us to conduct ourselves as Muslims is to cover ourselves in the best way possible. And whenever we are in public or whenever we're out and about, we cover ourselves in the best way possible. Yeah? And we try our best to attract the least attention to ourselves, both men and women. Tamam? Always. If a woman isn't doing anything, she's not doing anything haram, and she seems to still be the focus of attention, then that's not her fault. Rather, that's upon a man to يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, yeah? To lower their gaze. Yeah? The wajib is on you, not on her. Does that make sense? She's doing everything that she's supposed to do in the Sharia. You're still not happy. You still think she's a fitna. That's your problem. You lower your gaze, my brother. Does that make sense? Yeah. Tamam. They're the Khathamiyya, right? And Fadl ibn Harith. Right? After Hajj, Muslims just completed Hajj. Everybody's finished. They all done their nahar and stuff like that, right? A woman from Bani Khatham. She's called Khathamiyya. I don't know her name like fully, right? But she's known as Al-Khathamiyya. She was beautiful, right? Right? Everybody that saw her would describe her as Fa'iqatul Jamal. Like she was like next level, right? She came one day to the Prophet ﷺ after Hajj to ask him questions, right? So she walks up to him. Ya Rasulullah, aftini bikada, aftini bikada, aftini bikada. She starts asking him a bunch of questions. There's a guy called Fadl sitting next to him. Just staring at her, right? And check this out, yeah? The Prophet ﷺ, he's not like, he didn't turn to Khathamiyya and be like, hey, cover yourself, you're a fitna for the men. He looked at Fadl and he pushed his face. Turned away. And you know what Fadl did? And he pushed him away. And he looked again. And he pushed him away. He kept looking away.
He didn't complete his fast.
And the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't like reprimand him, he didn't like beef him, he didn't come down in like a ton of bricks. No, he didn't look at Khathamiyya and be like, hey, anti fattana, you're going to Jahannam because you're getting all the men to look at you and stuff like that. No, it's just khalaqaha Allahu kadhalik, man. Like Allah's made her like beautiful, right? And Allah made